How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. Not the way we wanted that second game of a three-game series against the Marlins to go yesterday, of course, but I'll tell you what. They're trying to move Michael King to the starting rotation. Interesting little development there. Want to talk about it. Want to talk about what this could mean. It feels like another Clark Schmidt situation. It feels like they are like, oh, you know what? Michael King's got longevity. He can actually pitch more than 20, 30 pitches. We just got to ramp him up. I actually see him following a pretty similar path to Clark Schmidt if they do utilize him in that way. I think that they're starting to realize that they don't necessarily need Michael King in the bullpen. They get so much value out of so many random-ass players that maybe they can start to leverage some of their better guys that have that longevity to be starting options. Like, I don't think they anticipated Luis Severino falling off so hard and that eventually they'd have to move on from him. You know, Rodon's injuries, Nestor Cortez's injuries, Domingo Germán's probably not coming back. They didn't anticipate that happening either. So now you have to figure out, like, okay, like, how do we supplement these losses? Let's look to one of our bullpen pieces that is very solid, could be a little bit more of an important piece on this team. Obviously, there's more money when it comes to starting pitching. So, of course, Michael King's like, yes, like, let's do this. It's going to take time. Like, it's going to take him a couple of weeks for sure. But, you know, Ryan, when you're looking at Michael King, we saw him open yesterday. Didn't look that good. 2 earned runs over 2 innings. But it takes time to ramp up. It's going to take him a little bit of experience to finally get that action in his arm again. It's a feeling. You know, you got to really train your arm to handle that kind of workload, as we saw with Schmidt, who's gotten a lot better over the last couple weeks here. But what are you thinking about Michael King making this transition from the bullpen to the starting pitching rotation? And do you think it's a long-term move for the Yankees?
Yeah, so, you know, I don't think it's a long-term move for New York. I don't really think it's something they can sustain right now, or at least they can build up right now entirely. Michael King is going to have, 2 months to build up his arm coming off of an elbow fracture. And I feel like even Aaron Boone admitted this, like, he's probably not going to be able to get all the way to like a full-time starter's load this season, but it definitely opens up interesting options for next year. The Yankees have had a decent amount of success with the opener. Like, you take away the game where Severino was bad, like, that just feels like Severino isn't good. It doesn't feel like it's the opener doesn't work. Look at what they did with Vasquez yesterday, or not yesterday, excuse me, 2 days ago. Look what they did with Brito yesterday. It seems to work. So, if King can be like a 2 to 3 inning guy for now who can open games, I think he'll be a fine pitcher in that role. I think way too many people are like overreacting to the first game. Oh, why are they doing this and that? The Yankees, they got to get creative with their rotation right now. Yes, Brito looked really good yesterday, and I'm very encouraged by a lot of things. Actually, recently wrote an article about, his new breaking ball sweeper. But I still think that he's still his ways away. He still needs to kind of get a little bit better with command. Same thing with Randy Vasquez. They're both still their ways away in terms of consistently executing pitches from being quality MLB starters. Michael King is longevity away. The stuff is there, like the talent, the stuff, the movement, everything is pretty good. I mean, there's no questions about whether Michael King can get swings and misses, whether Michael King can get outs. The question is, can Michael King get swings and misses and outs 2 times, 3 times through the order? And I guess that's the bigger question here. And can he sustain it from a health standpoint? Again, he's coming off an elbow fracture, right? Like, we didn't really see him as an option for back-to-back days until the second half of the season. So it's clear the Yankees are trying to be careful with him. And I guess the question I have, going forward is, should the Yankees really be looking at the rotation saying, okay, there's a lot that is uncertain here, but the answer is to just do what we did last offseason, which is throw a lot of money at the position. And I think that they're trying to reevaluate whether that's the right way to handle things. And I think that's a good process. There is really not a lot of reason to invest a lot in your 5th starter role outside of like maybe a few $1 million here and there for depth. I understand you can't have too much pitching, but in the same regard, considering the Yankees, like the options they have for the 5th starter, it's not like these guys are starting a postseason game. Like, I know that this year we're most likely not making the postseason, but let's say next year, like, is your 5th starter starting a playoff game for you if things go as planned? And even if they don't, like, you're acquiring somebody if they don't go as planned. If your 2 or 3 starter goes down and you're a playoff team, you're going to go trade for somebody. You're not going to say, all right, Johnny Brito, start game 2 of the ALDS. Like, that doesn't really sound like that makes much sense. So, should you just get guys who can get you through the season and help you compete in games, allow you to cut costs a little bit and invest that in the position player group? Absolutely. I think that's the way you go. And I understand this isn't my money, this isn't your money, like we're talking about Hal's money here, but it's clear that the money they spend affects their decision making. So I think going forward, looking internally and trying to piece together starts is their best option right now, and going forward for that 5th starter spot.
Absolutely. I mean, look, right now the Yankees are decimated at the position. Like the starting rotation, we went into this season, and on paper, I'm like, yo, this could be a ridiculous rotation. You're looking at Garrett Cole, you're looking at Rodon, you're looking at Sevy coming off a really good bounce back season, looking at Cortez having the best season of his career, looking at Frankie Montas before we found out that he basically just disappeared off the face of the earth, pulled us a Casper move. Right now, I'm feeling like it's what's happened to us. Like, it's beyond bad luck. It's bad. It's bad roster construction. It's bad decision making. What this all that has happened to us is the culmination of putting our faith in players who are unreliable. Rodon has been unreliable throughout his entire career for the most part. Severino has been unreliable. Frankie Montas has dealt with shoulder injuries in the past. Nestor Cortez has one good season to his name. Like, we set ourselves up for disappointment here. And unfortunately, and what's happened in the past is the Yankees have a lot of these players have flopped, but we've had the necessary pieces step up and cover up a lot of the deficiencies, a lot of those depth pieces. Like, you remember Luke Voigt, you remember Gio Urshela, you remember these guys coming out of the woodwork just saving our seasons. This year, it hasn't happened. Like, we haven't had those ridiculously hot stretches. Like, Matt Carpenter, guys, he saved our offense for a good, 2 months there. He had, 15 homers in, 30 games. Like, the Yankees this year, it was the perfect storm of bad roster construction, because when you actually look at how the Yankees have done things, they have gotten their asses saved every single season by reserves. This year, the reserves haven't done that. Like, Jake Bauers has been our best backup, and he's been fine, but he's a terrible defensive player. He's a fine first baseman, actually, but in the outfield, he's a bad defensive player. We have IKF playing in the outfield, for God's sakes, and I like IKF. Good guy. I think he's a fine depth utility piece, but if he's an everyday starter, you're not in a good spot. Like, you're objectively in a bad spot. So right now, I feel like with the rotation, there's going to be some major changes here. Like, Montas, unless they bring him back on a really cheap deal, is probably gone. Luis Severino is probably gone. Can we count on Nestor Cortez to be a top 3 man in this rotation? Maybe not. Like, maybe he's a 4 guy. Who's going to be that 3 guy? Garrett Cole, you're our ace. All hail Garrett Cole. The guy is the epitome of freaking consistency. I love Garrett Cole. If you don't like Garrett Cole, you're not a Yankee fan, because every Yankee fan likes Garrett Cole. Carlos Rodon, who knows? At this point, the jury's still out. Like, can he bounce back and actually maintain a healthy season? I hope so. I hope to God, because otherwise it's another $160 million down the drain. Hal Steinbrenner's probably pissed the hell off. Like, all my money's just being thrown out the window at this point. And then, who's the 3 starter here? Is it Clark Schmidt? I actually really like Clark Schmidt. You really like Clark Schmidt. There's a lot left to be proved here, but he's taken some big steps forward as the first year as an actual starter. There's a bright future for that kid. He's 27 years old, guys. Like, he's a young pitcher with a lot of upside. Keep an eye on him as a guy that they may go into next season thinking he could be one of our top guns. Randy Vasquez. I like Randy Vasquez. I think there's potential there, but he walks too many batters. He's a little inconsistent. He has accuracy and location issues. Got to work on those things. He really struggled in AAA this year. Johnny Brito, like you said, I think this morning, 3.72, 3.73 ERA over those last 7 appearances. He's got good stuff. He also walks a little bit too many batters, and he's young. Like, these pitchers are young, but they're getting MLB experience right now. Push them the rest of the way. Let them start. Let them get experience. That's where I'm kind of at with the starting rotation. And in terms of Michael King, why not? Like, why not have him build up and I'll say this. You're building up with the intention of probably missing the playoffs, right? So you're really building him up just to see how he improves. That way you have a better understanding of maybe he could be a starting pitcher next year. I think there is something there to say, he may not reach that peak potential as a starter for 2 months, and, the season will be over October 1st for us most likely. But Ryan, do you see value in giving Michael King time now to build up his game? That way we kind of see how that process will look for him and prepare him for what that's going to look like next offseason as he builds up for a starting role potentially, just as a part of the rotation in 2024. Like, maybe he ends up taking Herman's spot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think the big thing here, we're talking okay, how are the Yankees going to manage the rotation for the next few weeks, whatever it may be? It's just figuring out what you have, right? Like, I think the Yankees can really benefit from the next few months being, okay, Clark Schmidt, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez are starting 3 of the 5 games we're playing in a week. You know what I mean? You have Volpe playing, when the service date passes where you get an extra year of control, or not an extra year of control. I believe the reason the Yankees are actually keeping Pereira down at this point has to do more with, now he's a top 100 prospect on MLB pipeline. So if they keep him as a rookie for next season, if he does finish in the top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting, the Yankees will get an extra draft pick, and Pereira will secure his full season of service time for that season, regardless of any manipulation the Yankees try at that point. So, I think that this ends up being a situation where the Yankees have, Volpe, Pereira. I think we could see Peraza at some point this year. Maybe we see Austin Wells. Like, Bedworth really hasn't hit, and AAA is kind of AAA. The ball is really flying there. I don't really know what progress they're going to really make at AAA, and I think this is kind of evident by Pereira, how he's playing. The Yankees are like, we'll bring him up, and he has maybe a month down there, right? Like, I don't think they're valuing AAA as much as, they may have 2 years ago, right? So you could see a much younger team. You could see a team that kind of figures out what they have, right? Michael King, figure out what you have. There's no harm in that, right? He's a guy who's wanted to start for a while. Your rotation's decimated. And, yes, he gave up the 2-run home run, but if I told you that a game pitched by like Michael King, Johnny Brito, and I think Kenyon Middleton came into that game, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong there. Is that not like you get 3 runs out of that? Like, is that not a productive day? You allowed 3 runs that day. I think that's a good day for your pitching staff. I think that strategy worked. Yes, the distribution of runs wasn't great for Michael King, but in terms of an overall performance, it worked, right? Randy Vasquez, what they did, it worked, right? Like, this is working. This is working a lot better than Severino is for you. When Rodon comes back, at this point, I just want him to get innings so that he doesn't have too hard of a build back next year, because you're going to anticipate that he's not going to be able to pitch, 200 innings next year, not just because of injury, but I mean, the guy pitched, 20, 30 innings this year. He's going to have to build that back up. So you hope he just gets some pitches in, gets some reps in, gets a little bit more comfortable on the mound. And Alex, kind of looking forward here, right? Next year, you're going to have an insane battle for that 5th starter spot. Obviously, you look at Cole, Rodon, and Cortez as the 3 guys secure. I'd argue that Clark Schmidt's probably in the rotation next year. If he's on the team, I imagine he is, unless he has a terrible finish to the season. If he continues to get better throughout the year, I think we're going to see him in the rotation next year. And then you've got Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, Luis Gil will be back from Tommy John surgery. You're going to have guys from the minor league system, Will Warren, Clayton Beater. Is Drew Thorpe going to fight for a job? Richard Fitz, Chase Hampton. Like, I mean, I'm not even listing like decent prospects. Like, okay, guys, like, these guys aren't really that good. I'm listing a group of guys who have plus stuff and could really impact this team next year. Drew Thorpe just debuted in AA, and I was working the radio station for that game. Every single inning, it was the same thing. 3 up, 3 down, easy, like 2 or 3 minutes. It was the quickest game I've ever done this season. It was great. But ultimately, like, Alex, it's hard to not get excited about this pitching staff going forward, and that 5th starter spot's going to be competitive. Hell, Schmidt's still going to have to fight for something. I don't think he's just going to wake up in spring training and just, assume his job is his. They have a lot of guys who are going to fight for spots, and quite frankly, the Yankees are not in a position where they should continue to throw massive amounts of money at pitching. Your offense is the issue. You're going to need to throw some money, either big-time money in the outfield or the infield, to bring in at least, a notable bat that can really impact your lineup. You're thinking a guy who can hit between the 1 or 4 spots. And moving forward, Alex, this team needs to be able to develop starting pitching. They have to, right? Because it's clear that if they're going to succeed, it's going to come through, buying some bats in the offseason. That's going to require having more stable pitching. They're going to have guys like Wandy Peralta hit free agency at the end of the season. Thankfully, they have Scott Efros. He was throwing yesterday. He'll come back for the bullpen. You feel good about the pitching staff. It's just a matter of getting guys opportunities, and who knows who emerges. I mean, I looked at like Jordan Montgomery's progression through the system. He made 6 starts in AAA in 2016, and then he beat out Chad Green and Luis Sessa for the 5th starter job, right? And then Chad Green went from mediocre starter to their best reliever that season. So things happen like this. Things change very quickly, and I'm very excited to see what the Yankees have going forward. But again, they have to figure out what they have right now with the guys who can pitch right now.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's going to take some time, and ultimately, we'll see how it goes. But I'm pretty confident that there are some young players here that can make a really good, lasting impact on this squad. They just got to give them opportunities, and you got to give these guys chances to prove their worth. Vasquez and Brito are the ones that are here now. So hoping for the best. We've seen some good stuff. It just takes time. It really just takes opportunity, and the Yankees are trying to compete for the wild card at the same time as they're giving young guys chances. And it's hard to do. It's not like they're like, if we get close enough, they're only 4 games back. You go on a little winning streak, you win 4 or 5 straight games, which is not crazy in baseball, and you're in that thing. You're right in that mix. You're a game out. You're a half a game out, and suddenly you're in the process of potentially finding your way into the playoffs. And right now, it's easier said than done. We have a really tough series coming up. You know, we have to win today because the Braves are probably going to wipe the shit out of us, and like we're going to be done. Like they're going to bury us if we're not careful, and we don't have the offense to match up with them, and their offense is ridiculous. Like we need to just play the best baseball we've played all year to beat this team right now. They're red hot. I mean, you saw what they just did to the Mets. They just body bagged the Mets. They put them 7 feet under and then pissed on their graves. That's how bad the Mets were just destroyed by the Braves. And the Mets, like, they've gone the direction of youth. Like, they're like, we're giving our youth guys time. The Yankees are going in that direction too. We'll see if they call up Evers and Pereira when that'll be. But at this point, you know, they don't have DJ LeMahieu today. You know, he'll be playing tomorrow, I believe. He said he's going to come back. So there's a lot to go down. But Michael King, I think they keep giving him chances, build him up. You know, let him get used to the process of building up to be a starting pitcher. That way, he knows what to expect next year. I think that's a fine move. But guys, I'd love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm gonna catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.